Hi everybody, just a couple of quick points about my reading of your first two responses to the discussion questions, your introductions, and the response to the question of what is editing. In this video, I'd like to just quickly summarize the way that I'm going to be reading your posts and make sure we're all on the same page about certain qualities of posts that I'd like to see in your writing. So as you will notice, what I've done is I've gone through the introductions and try to personally welcome everybody to the class. And then I also read and graded the what is editing response. And what I've done there is, after I've graded them, I went in the discussion post and responded to about maybe 50% of the responses. And what I want to say is that it's not that I ignored the other 50%, it's just that my strategy for these is to respond to interesting ideas, typical ideas that sort of seem to be cropping up across the different responses. So in other words, if I've not responded to your post in every case, don't think that I'm ignoring you. It's just that it's more productive for us to do it this way. I'm going to respond to some, and then you will hopefully respond to the others. And I'm going to be rotating my responses, so you will get some feedback from me sooner rather than later, instead of me writing copious responses to every single discussion forum. Now, what I want to do here in the discussion forums is to create a sense of conversation, a sense of community. And I really think, and I really believe, and I really work to establish a sense where you and your responses are as valid and as interesting and as necessary for that conversation as mine. And so the traffic in the discussion forums will not be from you to me, back from you to me, but it should be among you as well as from me to you and from you to me. So we're all participating in the discussions, we're all contributing, we're all advancing ideas. So that's how I'm reading them. I'd like to also remind you of the need to comment substantively and substantially on your classmates' posts. So one strategy for this might be as follows. So for instance, you've posted something for Tuesday night, then you log on Thursday or Wednesday evening to post something for Thursday. So before you post your own response to the Thursday assignment, you may want to consider reading the posts that were made to the previous assignment and posting 3 or 4 substantive responses to the posts that interest you. Now, so skim through the posts, find 3 to 4 responses which in some way attract your attention, and respond somehow to those posts by asking a question, by extending an example, by offering a story to illustrate something or to contradict something, to complicate something in some substantive way, substantial way. Simply saying great post, really enjoyed reading it, wonderful ideas is not enough. If you would like to compliment your classmate on a great post, that's fine, but explain why you found those ideas so wonderful and how they contribute to the conversation of the class. Now, as far as responding to my discussion prompts, I would like them, of course, to be substantial and substantive as well. So in order to succeed here, please make sure you read the assignment really carefully. Please make sure you don't take shortcuts. Please make sure you don't simply just say quick answer to one question, quick answer to another, quick answer to another does the job, that doesn't do the job. Our purpose here is to create a conversation, is to genuinely discuss ideas that interest all of us. So in other words, basically, I think don't think of this discussion post as me trying to test your knowledge of something. I'm interested in that, of course, but I'm also probably more interested in having us have a conversation on those discussion forums. What follows this little talking head video is a 2-slide summary of my reading of your responses to the question, what is editing? So please watch and hear that stuff, and as always, let's keep the conversations going. Let's ask each other questions. I really like how much you know, how much you understand about editing already. Seems like a lot of you are up and up on a lot of stuff that some people who've never studied editing before would not know. So I think we're starting in a great place here, and please let me know if I can help you in any way advance your knowledge and your understanding and your work further. So thanks very much, and enjoy the rest of the video. So in this brief presentation, I would like to simply summarize the main ideas which I encountered while reading your posts in response to the question of what is editing. And the list on the first slide are sort of contains metaphors, main groupings, main ideas of what I thought a lot of you articulated when it comes to what editing stands for and what it means. And so I'll go through them one by one. If you notice, when you look at the list, the ideas about editing get increasingly more complex, and they move from more basic activities such as fixing mistakes essentially to more higher order concerns. So here we go. So somebody said that it's like putting icing on the cake. A few other people mentioned phrases like making the document look good, making the document better, making the writer even look good. And this kinds of responses are certainly accurate in the sense that editing does involve sort of putting the finishing touch on the text. The next group of ideas had to do with the notion of editing as polishing, and again, that's pretty close to putting icing on the cake, and that seems to imply that a text that needs editing is sort of almost fully baked, and then the editor steps in and puts some finishing touches on it, makes it look better, makes it look nicer, makes it flow better, or polishes it. Then there was a group of ideas, group of responses that seemed to focus on editing as clarification. And this is an interesting one because this is where I think the borders between editing and revision seems to be blurring a little bit, where we might say that editing is not just about correcting surface errors or correcting punctuation, but also about clarifying prose, developing prose, making sure that the ideas are precise, that the writer says exactly what is intended to say, and so on. So that's another group of ideas. Then there were these other notions that had to do with editing as managing, particularly managing publications, managing projects, publishing projects, managing processes that writers go through when they write and prepare their texts. And so as you can see, we're heading into sort of a higher level order concern, where we need to make sure that we think not just about surface features of a text, but also the project as a whole, and how editing fits into the writing and publishing project. A couple of people mentioned building a document life cycle, which is related to editing as managing. And what I took this to mean was that editors play a role in the whole document development, information development project from beginning to end, from ideas being developed to revisions to finishing the final version of the document. And then finally, I thought that this was an interesting metaphor. Editing is creating a game plan. So you might think about this kind of editing as something that, for instance, book editors do, or journal editors do, where they, for instance, a journal editor might come up with a plan for a special issue of a journal, and they create a plan for a vision for the journal, idea for the journal, but also a plan for implementing that vision, and a schedule, and so on and so forth. So that's the next interesting group of ideas. So as you can see from this first slide, we're ranging from kind of very concrete, very discrete items such as correcting things, putting finishing touches, to large ideas, large notions of project management, life cycle of documents, creating game plans for projects and such. All of these are complementing one another. All of these certainly, I think, belong to belong in our discussions of editing, and I'm glad you brought them all up. Now, in the next slide, I would like to pose a couple of questions for us to consider next. So we've articulated some ideas about editing. What do we need to do now? A couple of questions we may want to ask is, for instance, what is the relationship between editing and revision? Again, reading your responses, it seemed to me that we cannot really often or always distinguish cleanly and discreetly between these two activities. So to what extent do they overlap? To what extent are they different and distinct? At what stage in the document or project life cycle does editing come in? The traditional view of editing seems to be sort of the last thing you do before you publish, so that's certainly true for copy editing. But what other roles for editors exist during the document lifecycle before copy editing? What roles exist for them in planning, in development of ideas stages, in revision, and so on? And then finally, can we assume that editing is clearly separated from invention, revision, and other parts of the writing process, at least the way we were taught that process is? Somebody, I think it was Melanie, who mentioned on the discussion board that as a school teacher, she was trained to see the writing process as this neat, orderly sequence of steps: invention, revision, editing, proofreading, submission. Now, can we really see it that way? Now, that's certainly maybe the case in some cases, but not maybe not in all projects. So, at what level, at what stage, or to what extent can we separate editing from revision and other parts of the process, if at all? These other questions I'd like us to consider, to keep thinking about based on your first responses. Perhaps you can go into the discussion forum and post your thoughts on any of these by commenting on your classmates' posts. Thank you very much, and I look forward to reading more of your thoughts. Bye-bye.